Addicks knocked out of the League Cup by Cambridge United in a very disappointing performance. A tricky trip to Loftus Road on Saturday at lunchtime. Hi there, everybody. Welcome into the 11th episode, I think it is now, of the From the Valley Floyd podcast. My name is Callum Alston. I will be your host as usual. With just a slight reflection on the game at Cambridge last night, and then we'll have a look ahead to the trip to Loftus Road on Saturday lunchtime. We were going to be joined by Charlton fan who's unable to make it. Had some last minute pop up last minute, so it's just going to be me. Hey Sam, mate. I'm not feeling absolutely fantastic, so please forgive me if I sound a little bit tired. I'm going to do my best to get through. I was actually supposed to be at Craven Cottage tonight, but I had to sort of bin that off. But I'll try to sort of have a conversation. We'll keep it relatively short this evening for those of you listening live, and then those of you that have on the podcast, it should be 20-25 minutes or so. Let's have a look at the game last night, as much as I don't want to. It wasn't great, to put it mildly. It was one of those sorts of cup games where the manager goes into it, and you can tell from the lineup he's not that interested. A lot of kids last night, a lot of players who needed minutes, but a lot of players who just didn't show up. A bench of that genuinely was, and someone correct me if I'm wrong. I think I'm remembering it correctly. It was all kids. No senior players at all on the bench. The senior players that did play didn't look like they could be bothered to be there. Corey Anderson getting himself sent off really stupidly, which means he misses the game on Saturday. And central midfield's a place where we don't have a huge amount of depth to start with, and we don't have many players like that who, for all of his problems at times on the ball, if you 1-0 up off the Raod, he's a player you actually quite like to bring on. He's got decent height, can break the game up. Not great news yesterday. Sounds like Luke Berry's injured again. It was just one of those nights, really, and we get them far too often with Charlton in the Cup, right? Whether it's the FA Cup, the League Cup, and we'll see who Cambridge draw, right? It's absolutely sod law that they'll get a Tottenham away or something, right? But last night they wanted it more than we did. They pressed well. They were a unit defensively. They looked pretty solid. Their goalkeeper looked in command of his box for a lot of the game. They didn't make the same mistakes we did, and they didn't look as passive as we did. Right? It's never fun to go somewhere and lose. It's never fun to go somewhere and be quote unquote upset by another side. Some less than pleasant sort of songs sung towards you and towards us. It's all fair and all. It's football, it's banter. Taking the mick is part of it, but it's not fun to be on the receiving end of that, and it's not fun to spend upwards of 40, 50, 60 quid to go and end up watching what in reality felt like an academy side. By the end of it, it was all academy kids. Nathan sort of found that, and I don't know whether he was trying to make a point, and we can talk about it more about not having defensive options. I thought that we're not going to have a head loss over the second round of the Carabao Cup, in which basically none of our first 11 played. But you watching that, you got to have serious questions about Zach Mitchell as a fifth choice centre back in a back three, especially since Reece Burke is like half a footballer with his injury history. Zach just got completely outmuscled by a League Two striker, and it happened time and time again. I've said it loads of times. I'm a big Zach Mitchell fan, right? I think there's a lot of talent in there. I think he's actually quite quick for a centre back. He's really good on the ball. But I've made this point over and over and over again. He needs to gain a couple of kilograms to play. I think the level's above. He was turned a couple of times really poorly. On the second goal, he was just basically manhandled, and then lost his footing. And I said it at the time. That's not really what would worry me. What would worry me is that constantly as the ball's coming up, when you think about the ball in the air, you think of a Lloyd Jones, a Murray Bell, a Kane Ramsey. They're sort of in the air. They're above the forward. They don't let them sort of bring it down or knock it backwards, right? And that's really important because we're going to have Kaminsky in goal for championship games, and he's not a keeper that spends most of his time off his line, right? So you want to be knocking the ball sort of forward. The issue is that Zach was constantly behind his man. His man was winning the ball, flicking it on. The team I was thinking of was a team like West Brom, right? Who play that really sort of direct style of football. If you let that striker knock the ball down, then number 10's running on your goal, right? And it's happening time and time again. This is a player in League Two, and I get players in League Two are physical, and I get that, Zach is young and he's still got a lot to learn. But I think that was the sort of game, if I was the manager, and it sounded like it in Nathan Jones' sort of post-match, I think he realised, I need another centre-back, right? Because you can't rely on Reece Burke to stay fit. You can't rely on Lloyd Jones to stay fit, right? He's missed multiple games, with a knee injury before, right? Kane Ramsey's missed games, right? You're not going to have a fully fit back five for every single game, and Murray Bell's got to cover your left-back slot at the moment as well. So, we end up in problems as well if Kane Ramsey's out, right? Because you can't leave Zach Mitchell to cover two players who get absolutely killed out there, right? And that's because Kane Ramsey's such a special player in terms of his ability to deal with that. But Rob Apt is not a fullback. So you're in this place where I'm interested here because Sam's just going to be interested in Sam's point before I continue. Just hoping you're able to get at least another 2 players for the window shots. Yeah, I think it's... I look at it and it makes me question the Alex Mitchell loan. I understood it, right? I don't think he's championship quality, especially not on the ball. And we know from Alex's history that he wants to play. But we had a second round cup game coming up, right? You could have told him, can you wait a week, right? And then you wouldn't have had to play all children on that right-hand side. And all the trouble came from that, from our right and their left, right? Which was youngsters out of position. We had a centre-back, a central midfielder for the youth team. Hobson, isn't it? He was making his debut. He was playing at right wing back. He's not a right wing back. He couldn't cope, right? Zach couldn't cope with the overloads. It was an absolute mess, right? Second goal, Ashimura is running out into no man's land, having the ball slid between his legs, and you're just sort of watching it. Just an absolute catalogue of errors all over the place. We couldn't get control of the ball in midfield, and that worried me, right? I don't like questioning players' efforts. I don't think it's particularly helpful. But Joe Rankin, Costello, Corey Anderson, and Harvey Nibbs did not cover themselves in glory on Tuesday night. They didn't press particularly high. They didn't win the ball. And Panzu absolutely bossed the middle of that park. And that's a good player in Panzu, right? I don't think he should be in League Two. But he absolutely bossed that game. And that is, that is a concern. I spent almost 10 minutes on a second round of Carabao Cup game, right? It feels a bit over the top. Before we did the QPR preview, Charlie Callum still worries me. He does not look sharp enough at all. And I'm not going to sort of go in on him or this, that, and the other. I understand if Nathan plays him on Saturday against his former side, but he doesn't do enough outside of the box to mean that he can't be sharp inside of it. And there were just a couple of moments where he gets the ball and he's just a little bit late, and that allows the defender to get back there. His shot's not quite quick enough, and that hopefully will come. But it didn't look great, and I don't think that's something that can be solved in a training pitch. That's something you need to have it in games, and by the, with the international break coming up, there's just not going to be a heck of a lot of game time now we're out the cups for players to get sharp. right? You compare him to Miles, who looks sharp as anything at the moment, right? Olafe was okay, I thought. Didn't do a heck of a lot, and that's a worry. It's a League Two backline, and he didn't really run at them. He didn't really use his strength or his power, and that was a concern. Again, how many of those senior players wanted to be there playing with the kids? I saw someone at that point, and as a fan, right, you got to ask that question. We got this here. Going on what Nathan Jones has done to the team over the last year, I think he doesn't like players who think they're bigger than the club or feel they should be inside. Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably part of it, right? I think if we saw it with Reg as well, right? He basically got an opportunity and went, I want to go and play. Nathan went, okay, you can go. And we brought in Tom McIntyre, and that was great, right? But we're just in a... It makes you question those backup options, right? If you need to bring some of those players on, if you're Joe Rankin Gossett, you should be, you have more pedigree than Greg Docherty does at this level, right? I wouldn't play Saturday after Tuesday, right? Corey Anderson needs to be... He's 20 years old, right? Like he's young and learning, and midfielders are often later bloomers and all the rest of it. There's got to be a point where he's challenging Conor Coventry in there, and he just didn't. Again, not a cat and mouse chance. No, but I know he's suspended now anyway. And Harvey Nibbs really should be battling for it, right? And he scored the goal that first week. Against Stevenage, I thought he looked good, and Tuesday was not his finest moment. And so Kerry's going to start on Saturday, right? He's given an opportunity to I think win an opportunity, and he didn't take it, right? I don't think the two forwards took that chance either, right? We'll see what Nathan does with Kelman, but I wouldn't change the front two, right? I'd stick with the 11 that played Leicester. I think against QPR, if you've got a 1.51 or whatever it was XG against Leicester, you have that against QPR, and we'll get into their goalkeeping situation in a minute. Their goalkeeper hopefully won't be man of the match. We don't try and change the system for Saturday. I see TC down one side and another Fuller down the other with Miles and Kelman up front together. You can't, right? Like, that's the thing, is that the system is the system. The system's not the problem here. We're creating the chances. For me, I think, I don't want to throw, and this is just my opinion. Obviously, football's subjective, isn't it? You're tuning into listening to me for half an hour. But my opinion is I don't really want to throw Fuller into some of these games. Yeah, he looks like Lookman. He does freakishly, and he's wearing the same shirt number, and it's all a little bit uncanny. But I don't look at Fuller and go, I think physically you're ready to play in the Championship. I think there's a big step up from Stevenage's backups and Cambridge's sort of mixed squad, to playing against first teams in the Championship. And I don't think QPR will go down, right? I think QPR will end up where they usually end up, which is somewhere between 16th and 19th, right? And teams like that, you can't, this early in the season, you can't take the risk with. And I don't think anyone was bad against Leicester, and that's why I think that you have to kind of keep it the way it was. And we can't have too many players going forward, right? Because whether people like it or not, we're trying to stay up in this division. But my questions from Tuesday are less system-based. I say Fuller was a bright spot. Congratulations, Hodgson, is that how you say it? Congratulations to him on getting his first Charlton start. It's a fair play to him. And, players like Mitchell and Anderson will learn from that. But you've got to listen to that post-match interview from Nathan. You think, sometimes managers will make team selections and like a reflection on the transfer business. I always use this as an example, right? Dean Holden picking that really weird lineup away at Oxford, and I always thought that was him making a point that I don't have the players that I need. And he was sacked, right? Nathan's nowhere near that. Let's not be ridiculous over a second round cup game. But I think Nathan was kind of making a point last night, and the only problem with him making a point is that for those of us in the away end that spend 50 quid going up there, his point was difficult for those of us that spent the money and end up watching basically an academy side for an hour. The referee was terrible. Before somebody makes that point, I don't think he knew left from right at times. But Cambridge thoroughly deserved deserved to go through yesterday, and whoever, I hope they get a big draw, right? They fully deserve that. Especially may have been at Millwall, and we may not be his biggest fan. You have to respect Neil Harris, right? And I think that Cambridge will bounce straight back into League One next season. So all the best to Cambridge rest of the season. Knowing our luck, we'll draw them in the FA Cup as well. But I hope I do not have to go back to that ground and deal with the 13 cows in the field. So the last point here, I feel teasing Callum doesn't work. Be interested in Miles up front. I mean, I think Miles has to be up front. I thought Miles was very good on Saturday. I think he has to start. I wouldn't change anything. In all fairness, I think we were good enough that you just run out that same side. I think there's enough experience in that side to not be overawed by going to West London. Summer's been to QPR quite often, actually. I quite like that ground. It's not the most intimidating of grounds to go to. It's not. It's loud enough, but the way that it's kind of set up, it's not. There's not really an ultra section that's gonna intimidate you in a way that I think you can get in certain other places. It's a great ground, Loftus Raod. All right, let's move on. I missed them. We don't have another trip. Oh God, what I missed the cow, Sam. Yeah, sheesh, that ground. It's not the worst ground I've been to. I tell you, it's not the worst ground I've been to. But I really could live with not going there, like ever again. Although at least Cambridge North Station now makes it that it's like 20 minutes to get back to the train rather than the blooming 50 minutes wherever it is to get back to town. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on to Queen's Park Rangers then. Looking at QPR, I mean, it's really interesting because they have started the season absolutely terribly, right? They played 4 games, I think, including the cup game. They've lost 3 of them. They've drawn 1. And suppose according to their fans, they played well for 45 minutes against Preston and then proceeded to throw it away in the second half. Having watched us batter Leicester for an hour and have for 90 minutes and had a goal disallowed because of a bit of argy-bargy on a corner, that QPR will win it 1-0 on a really rough corner. I hope everyone's prepared themselves for this now. But the one thing that you have to look at QPR is the absolutely bonkers goalkeeping situation. They've got his name's Joe Walsh, who is in goal, who I've got here. I mean, the stats are absolutely terrible. I can't seem to find them now, but he has been absolutely awful. I mean, whenever a team like Coventry scores 7 goals against you and have an XG of 1.93 or something, right? They're not all top corner finishes, right? He looks really out of his depth, right? And a lot of QPR fans are saying there's a project going on at QPR. The owners are, as has forever been the case at QPR, are a little bit strange in the way in which they run the football club. They made 3 signings this week. Isaac Hayden's a very good signing. Is it Saitoto, the winger they brought in? And they brought in Reece Norrington from Sheffield United as well. I'm going to see they're panicking a little bit after the start, and I think you'd have to be. I mean, they've just shipped goals for fun. But if they continue with Joe Walsh in goal, I mean, what you do is you shoot, and you shoot as often as you can. You swing the ball into the box as often as you can. I think sometimes we don't shoot enough, if I'm being totally honest. But you just have to shoot, right? I mean, I don't understand why Jimmy Duns, who I thought is an excellent centre back, is out at right back at the moment, right? Because there's another full back to play there, right? Korokai Dembele, who was really good in France for Brestois, right? He's looked. I thought he looked really good to start last season. Kind of fell off a bit. I think he got an injury, but he's a small lad, and basically everyone's realised he's small. So you just physically can sort of knock him out of games at times, right? Richard Kone, obviously we know about. Lloyd Jones is probably relishing playing against Kone again, but the only reason Kone didn't score in that playoff second leg is because Macaulay Gillespie gave him a little shove. Right, is that the most underrated moment of those playoffs? Right, Richard, Kone's a really dangerous player there, and maybe I'll have a chat about in the post game depending on how the game goes. But if you'd offered me Callum or Kone, and they're basically end up being around the same price. Personally, I'd rather have Kone, but I think he has a higher ceiling. But uh, you know, that sounds like I'm bashing Callum, which I'm not, because I actually quite like Callum. But we're just in a bit of a place here. You're playing a QPR side who are in really poor form, right? They're not creating a heck of a lot. Gian Stefan's under a lot of pressure. The decent manager at Rons, but he's never managed an English game before, and I think you're seeing that. You've got to try and get on top of QPR early. They're what they'll do for that first 10 or 15 minutes, I imagine, is they'll come out of the block absolutely firing, right? Whenever you get absolutely battered in the next game, for 10, 15 minutes, you come out. But if they don't get a goal in that first 10 or 15 minutes, we can just hold firm, right? And then we can hit them at some point, score a goal in the first half, which we don't do enough of. Their confidence may completely collapse. And I think that's what, and, the home end may get toxic. And that's what you're really going for as an away side here. This is one of those games when you're going away from home. It's one of those very few ones that you look at and go, we really should be trying to win this game. Most away days, you'll be happy with a point, right? We go to Sheffield United as the next away day after this. And you think, yeah, point. I've been very happy to leave Bramwell another point, right? Bristol City, I was very happy to leave with a point. This QPR game is one that you should be, you've got to look at it and go, we should be aiming to win that game of football, right? They're playing a 4-2-3-1. It's all very simple. They don't have the greatest squad in the world. They've got a very poor goalkeeper. We'll see if Nardi's back in goal, who's their normal number one. But he seems to have fallen out with the club hierarchy, right? If we can get on, if we can get a goal relatively early, it could get quite toxic at Loftus Raod. And I think that we need to score for our own confidence. If we're battling and we can't score, we're going to start questioning it, and that's something that's problematic. I mean, I've got a thing here. The main thing I'm hoping we've learned from Saturday is the players stop questioning to shoot. This is true. We do need to shoot more. Okay, I feel for Connor Coventry because that's a great shot. The keeper's made an absolute worldie off of that shot, but he doesn't shoot enough, right? Greg Docherty doesn't shoot enough. Kerry, I think, did try to shoot a couple of times, but there were bodies in front of him. But what we've got to do is we've got to be very professional on Saturday. Don't let the emotion get the best of us. Go there, approach like you would any other away game. Really focus on staying tight. Really focus on keeping our shape. Really focus on doing the. I'm going to sound like Nathan Jones here. God, I apologize to everyone before I use the sentence. But you really, this is the type of game you have to do the basics well, right? Just make sure that you do everything that you're supposed to do the right way. And, the talent discrepancy here is not particularly, that first goal is going to be so important. I think whichever side gets it probably goes on to win. This is exactly what Paul's saying here, actually. Evening, reporting late, no problem at all. It's a work night. Everyone gets busy. There's always a thing on these streams too. There's a lot more people that listen later than watch live. But I like doing the live things because I like having the conversation. Can't be QPR recover from that drubbing. Score the first goal of work. Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what I was saying, Paul. I fully agree with you. Whoever gets that first goal, it's going to be so important, right? Because we'll be questioning, can we score? We haven't scored for 2 games, and then we did score in the cup with a great goal from Fuller. But, we haven't scored in the league for 2 games. I just can't imagine we're going to have 4 straight games where the goalkeeper's going to be man of the match. Though, right? You got to think that's got to end. But part of the reason the goalkeepers have looked like man of the match, I think sometimes because we shoot kind of at them, right? I'm not taking that save away from Vitek against Bristol, but that's still one of the best saves I've seen in person. But other than that one, you look at it and you go, yeah, the keeper, it's a good save, but he should save that. It's a good save, but he should save that, right? With the exception of the Connor Coventry rocket, which is it's just he's got there, right? It's just half a foot, further. It's in the top corner. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, I just want to have a really quick moan about the ticket price. Cheers. Welcome to the From the Valley Flow podcast, everybody, where Callum likes to have a moan every once in a while. £40 for a championship game is absolutely ridiculous. And there is nothing anybody can say to me that will make me change my mind on that. The fact that Premier League games are capped. And there we go, moan away. Thank you, Paul. I appreciate it. I think this is when we can actually all. And this reflects on all of us, right? There are people who maybe don't go and have a halftime beer. You know, people who are teetotal or people that, don't want to pay the price at the value, whatever it is. So when I have a moan about concessions, I think some people, it doesn't bother them. I think this is what, if you're going to this game, you've paid £39 for a ticket or 36 for a restricted view, right? Like, absolutely mad that there is no cap on away ground. I don't know if anyone's seen the Portsmouth Southampton thing, and this is really starting to worry me about going to the Den, where not only have they charged them £40 a ticket, right? Southampton are charging Portsmouth, but they have to get a coach, and they have to pay £18 for that coach, right? It's 58 quid, right? And you're not legally allowed to travel to the game any other way. There's going to be no food or drink sold until I think it's 10 o'clock, right? There's no, fair enough. I get it. I actually do get it with these big derbies that, probably not having booze is, maybe quite a smart thing. That's a particularly nasty rivalry and they do like to smash the town up. So I sort of understand the authorities. But they've got them leaving at 8 o'clock in the morning, right? They're charging them 58 quid to stand in a queue to get on a bus. And they're gonna have their IDs checked. You just sort of listen to stuff, just like absolutely mad what's going on with ticketing. And I was told my cousin's a huge Leeds fan. Obviously, they've been in the Championship quite a lot. He said some of them are truly terrible. However, and I will give them a credit when we get to the next preview. We'll get to the preview after we play the club who will not be named, which is Sheffield United. Fair play Sheffield United. Tickets are out tomorrow for that. For those that are going to away, there's plenty of them. I think it's 2,200 allocation. We'll be fine. It's a bit of a weird one. They've changed. They've changed the. I'll come to you in a second, Sam, because this is a really good point. I will come to the back in a second. But they've changed the point system as well. You can start at 580 now, right? So they've removed the top tier. I think it was 700 plus Valley Gold, where it's me and like 80 people. They've changed that, which is interesting. I don't think that helps anybody. But I promise we'll do during the international break. I'll have a look at some of the points and how they've done it, because I think there's some real issues with the way they are selling away tickets. There's this game here, and I was saying it to someone. Must have been a tweet someone put out. There's only 1,700 tickets. It's a London away date. There's never going to be enough tickets for it. Millwall give us the whole stand. QPR don't give us the whole stand. It's a small stand. It's an old ground. If you didn't go to Burton on a Tuesday night, if you didn't go to Mansfield, if you, for the people that did, right, that's kind of where the ticket should be. That is fair priority. If you didn't do one of the longer away days last year, you don't do the cup games. Unfortunately, there's only so many tickets to go around, and it's sort of it's not perfect, but I think it's the best of all the bad options is to do it via the loyalty point system. There are issues with the loyalty point system. It resets. Loyalty points haven't been added to people's accounts. When they have been added, it's been after tickets have gone on sale. There are problems with the system, but and I know there are a lot of people have ended up with restricted view. The fact this restricted view is £36, right? £36 for a restricted view. And I don't know if some of you have seen the restricted view at Loftus Raod. It's an old ground. And they make that pole that we've got in the Jimmy Seed stand, right, which blocks half the middle of that stand. There's not even the start of it for there's an entire scoreboard which basically blocks off a view of anything other than the corner flag on the far left. Right? And they're charging you £36 to go and sit up there. Right? Absolute madness. Absolute madness. Right? And this is the sort of stuff in football that we need to be sorted, right? If you're a Pompey fan going to Southampton, you shouldn't have to pay for the bus that they're forcing you to get on. Right? That should be covered, right? These are clubs that have spent multiple millions in the transfer market. It's not a problem for them to, to subsidise that sort of travel, right? If you're going to QPR on a Saturday at lunchtime in a game that's televised, you should not be paying £40 for an away ticket, and you should not be paying £36 for a restricted view, right? And I think it was a weird one here, Sam, because I think you're making a point here. So you've got Charlton fans, so you've had issues here with the Royal Mail, basically, right? They've had issues with the resend. Firstly, to be fair to the Charlton ticket office, if you email them, they will just send it over to the ground, and you can just get them to print it for you. They're actually pretty good at that. And then, but for me on the I don't know if yours is a restricted view, Sam, because mine's a free, a proper view seat. I didn't have to pay postage, so I don't know. Sometimes they charge postage, sometimes they don't. I didn't realize they were actually charging postage on anything, which is interesting. Mine came within 2 days, and I didn't have to pay postage. So I'm not sure what happened there. Maybe oftentimes because I'm in that group one, I go on before the system's kind of really set up properly, and things like postage aren't pre-set up. So I wonder sometimes if I benefit from that. But that's a strange one. I didn't pay any postage fee for my tickets. But what we can have a much longer discussion. I think it's something people might find quite interesting about, just some of that stuff from the club, some of that loyalty point stuff, some of the Valley Gold stuff. Just some of the things that I know they're working on that maybe aren't quite right. And anyone that was, as I said on the show on Sunday, anyone that was at the Leicester game, the concessions were much better, right? They weren't perfect, but they're much better. So I think they are trying to listen to people. But one of the things I've seen for the Millwall game coming up is this thing about everyone going, it's going to sell out. But they're trying to sell 12,000 tickets fully on restricted sale, where season ticket holders are only allowed to buy a certain number. I don't see how they're going to sell all those tickets, and I don't think they intend to. Right? I think they fully intend to try and keep those sort of far left banks. Yeah, this is fair. I mean, quite often. I mean, I usually go pick it up, Paul. I agree with you. I collect from the Valley Trust Royal Mail, my club online purchase, not my tickets. My thing is that because I've got Valley Gold, I get the 10% off. So it's either I get free shipping or I get 10% off the price. If I'm down at the Valley, I'll just go and buy the thing. But you're hearing that really, Sam? They're hearing that Millwall fans are buying our tickets because that's a safety concern. That shouldn't be happening, right? That really shouldn't be happening. I mean, if you're seeing that, I would send the ticket office an email on that, because that shouldn't be happening. But it's one of the issues you've got with social media, right? You're going to have some Millwall guy going, I bought a ticket on some sort of anonymous account when you can't track it. But that's a security risk, and that should be called out. There are many games, if I really in the upper, Sam, really in the covered end upper there, so Millwall fans are saying they're buying a ticket. That feels a bit like a mick take, right? Because that I can't imagine that's really happening. And if that is happening, that needs to be sent to the club because they need to have a look at that. We don't want any. All that takes is one idiot, right? I don't think that Millwall are being bussed into the game. So they're going to let them travel. I mean, normally, if I'm right, they have their own sort of train that kind of picks them up from Bermondsey, don't they? They're their own sort of travel in. But we can talk about that again before that Millwall game. If we go back to the QPR thing, the really key thing here is that this is when I think Wrexham's going to be exactly the same way this year as well. There just aren't going to be enough tickets in the away ends, right? Teams like West Brom, teams like Bristol, teams like Sheffield, United and Wednesday. Although we can have that again, we can have that conversation morals-wise about going to Sheffield Wednesday with their ownership and all the rest of it. But those sorts of away end derby where they're absolutely huge, you're not going to have a problem. QPR, you're going to have an issue with. I mean, even Millwall, you're not going to have too much trouble with, I don't think. Got Toby here. Both teams coming off a loss. This could be 1-0 Charlton. Yeah. I mean, I was saying it before. I think it really comes down to this is a game where I think who scores first really does matter. I don't think it always does. I think this one is, You've got one team that's struggling to score goals, which we are, and we have another team that's struggling to keep the ball out of the net, right? If they get an early goal, it could be problematic in terms of that kind of gets the crowd into it, gets them going. And as much as this isn't a derby, right? Anyone that says this is a derby, it's really silly. This is not a derby. I actually quite like QPR fans, and they're quite nice. But ran into many times catching the coaches out of London. They'll be going. I think we were going to Accrington, and they were going to Blackburn, just down the road. We had very nice conversations with them. And this was right after we dumped them out of the Carabao Cup as well. But it's one of those things where it's it's not a derby, but it's one of those things where you can really play on that sort of thing when your back's against the wall, right? The one plus about whatever happens this weekend, unless we lose 8-0, and if we lose 8-0 to QPR, we've got some real problems. As long as we don't lose 8-0, we can't drop into the bottom three. So we will finish that first international break outside the bottom three. But I said this, I think, in the Leicester preview. My worry is if you lose to Leicester, which, okay, we didn't deserve to lose. This should come back to in a second. Let's pray Carney starts when he's in Lloyd Jones's pocket. He is. I was mentioning it before. He was, except for the one moment he broke free in that second leg, and Macaulay Gillespie gave him a shove in the hip, and that basically stopped him from scoring because that's on target if he's fully stood up. But yeah, I mean, this is a game where you're reliant on having a really good Lloyd Jones afternoon, really good Kane Ramsey afternoon as well. Ramsey can deal with Coney's pace, although Coney hasn't started any of these games. So he scored twice, but I think he's come off the bench in both. So it's quite interesting. But I said it in that preview. Going back to my previous point, I said it in the preview that if losing to Leicester's not, we shouldn't have lost the game. We should have got a point. The goal never should have been disallowed. Right, we should have won it because we should have scored multiple goals. But losing to Leicester on a worldie, you kind of just have to go, okay, it's the Championship. These things can happen. Keep your heads up. Let's move on. You then lose the cup game, and your manager comes out and has a moan about the recruitment in terms of not having enough defenders after he sent 6 players out on loan. And then you lose this one going into a break where you've got 2 weeks of nothing in between except for Thomas Tuchel's England boring the life out of all of us. That's the mood music, I think, won't be particularly nice. And that does not mean that, anyone knows me, I love Nathan Jones. This is not going to be a thing where it's the manager's in trouble or anything like that. I just mean in terms of mood music around the club, right? We came in with so much of optimism. We beat Watford. We got a really good point at Bristol City. You had the optimism, and that's been deflated a little bit just with these last 2 results. Maybe definitely not with the Leicester performance, but definitely with that result was a little bit. And one of the problems coming into the season was that worry: are we going to score enough goals? Even if you look at it, you go, Kaminsky has conceded a single goal. He should have conceded a penalty. That is true, but that was cancelled out by the Josh Edwards blatant penalty that was missed. Right, so let's not worry about it. Kaminsky has not had a save to make, quite literally, except for the Fatubu thing angling over his head where he's got absolutely no chance of reacting to it. So we're absolutely fine defensively at the moment. But the issue is if we don't start scoring goals, any time we concede, it's going to feel like we're going to lose. And we need that confidence kind of back. You look at this game against QPR, Sheffield United are in a weird spot. They've got a good squad, but they're not looking great, right? They're bottom of the table, I think, actually, at the moment. And then you've got Blackburn at home who aren't looking particularly great either, and especially not away from Ewood Park. And you think to yourself, there's points, here. I mean, I know I've got Millwall in the middle there. Our record against them is terrible. But if there's a game that Nathan Jones can get us up for, I would imagine it would be Millwall at home. But you got to look at that and you got to go, can I get 7 points out of these next 4? Right? And if you can, you're on 11 points after, 8 games or something, you're absolutely fine. So, anyway, that's just my perspective. There's going to be, I know that Charlton Live's on tomorrow. The Chronicles is on tomorrow evening as well, I think. I don't know if you're on, Sam. I don't know if you're on Charlton Live tomorrow. But definitely tune in. The Corley's podcast should be out tomorrow as well. I'm trying to think of any other Charlton media because there's a new one that started as well, isn't there? I find with these things, people sort of have like tonight. It is. Oh, it's the new one tonight, Paul. The new one tonight, Paul. Sorry, to those who are listening, this must sound a bit random. Sam's not sure. Sam's not sure if he's on or not. I hope you are, Sam. Who do I reckon starts over? I think it's going to be Miles and TC. I don't think you change it from Saturday. I understand the calls for Kelman against his former club. I do. I just don't think that you can sort of batter Leicester for 90 minutes and change it. I know the Wafe played the whole game on Tuesday, so I'd be very surprised if he's anywhere near it. The real thing that we really need to look at is you got to go. We need Matty Godden back. I think that's pretty obvious. But then you look at it and you go, 34 is he now, Matty? 34-year-old championship striker. You know, I mean, he doesn't rely on his pace, so that, you know, he should he did age gracefully in League One. He was far too good for that division. There we go, Paul. Sorry about that. It's on Wednesday. It's Wednesday at 8. Why do I think it was Thursday? I don't know. I don't know why I think it was Thursday. Yeah, so it must be Chronicles of tonight and then Charlton Live's tomorrow. There we go. And then they've got that new one. That I can't remember it off the top of my head. I will get the name of it and recommend it because I think it's so important. I know people compete with this sort of stuff, but you know, it should be. I think we should all support each other. We should all sort of stick together, and you know, I think that everyone's perspective and opinion, I might disagree with it, but yeah, Paul's gonna have to go, isn't it? Because he's got to be on in 20 minutes. I don't know how long it takes you to load in. Oh, it's your brother. Oh yeah. But anyway, I'm gonna call it there. Everyone get a chance to go get a cup of tea or something. It is a Wednesday night. But thank you all for coming to join me. Sorry if you're listening. Yeah, Toby, there we go. That's a great way to end it. I think it's top that there's loads of podcasts. Lovely work. Thank you very much. Sorry for those of you listening. This one's been a little bit messy. I didn't have a QPR fan. I felt really bad about going to ask QPR fan. Do you want to talk about your club after you lose 7-1? Their podcast did not seem particularly, as you can imagine, positive, and I just thought I don't want it to sound like I'm rubbing salt in the wound, which obviously I'm not. But some people can get a bit, get a bit upset. All right. Well, the Chronicles is on, I guess, then in 18 minutes. Hopefully we'll see Sam on Charlton Live tomorrow. We'll find out. Corley's podcast should be out tomorrow as well. Should be really interesting. And yeah, thanks for joining. Sorry to those listening on the podcast. It can be a little bit messy. And a lot of people in. I'm still trying to learn how to do these things live. But thank you all so much. Here's to hoping we get a win at Loftus Raod. I will be back on Sunday. I've got to actually go and buy a mattress. So we'll see. We'll see what time it's going to be on Sunday. But I will be back to do a post match. All right, everyone. Have a nice rest of your week. To those of you that are heading down, I'll see you at Loftus Raod on Saturday. That'll be Addicks.